3 words scored beneath my name hurt worse than any box cutter I'd ever pulled from a tool belt. Father of Convenience. It was scrawled in a cramped, fussy hand just under the calligraphed Daniel Rios on a thick cream place card, the kind you only see at fundraisers, governors' breakfasts, and weddings where the centerpieces smell like money. I stared at those 3 words until the black ink fuzzed at the edges. Father of Convenience. 20 years of double shifts, of bleach burned into my knuckles, of 3 a.m. fevers and fallen training wheels and algebra done at a kitchen table sticky with yesterday's orange juice. 20 years of late rent barely avoided and secondhand strollers rebuilt with zip ties. And to these people, I was a placeholder who turned screws and showed up in steel-toed boots. The ballroom looked like a movie set for rich people who never sweat. Crystal hunched from the ceiling like frozen rain. Through floor-to-ceiling glass, the Chesapeake Bay threw back the August sun in broken plates of light. Waiters glided like something out of a marching band halftime show. We were on the Eastern Shore, outside St. Michael's, at an estate venue where even the gravel in the driveway had a pedigree. Around me, polished suits in colors with names, women with hair that didn't move even when they laughed, a long family table heavy with cutlery you'd need a degree to navigate. The attention felt like static. A woman on the groom's side, pearls and posture, leaned toward her husband and lifted a manicured hand to hide her words. He smirked without looking at me. A lanky guy in a fleece vest, the kind of vest that tells you he believes his spreadsheet could run a town, looked down at my boots as if they'd tracked in something crude. 2 seats down a young man didn't bother with quiet. I guess they had to include facilities, he announced, just loud enough, as if a janitor couldn't possibly understand English. I heard him. I put the place card back where I found it like it might stain the linen. I pushed my chair back from the table and stood up slow. No scene. No raised voice. I scanned that glittering room full of people who confuse manners with respect and looked for my daughter. Maya stood under an arch undone by white flowers, her heels already in her hand, her toes grateful for carpet. In that silk dress, she looked like snow if snow were warm, still, and complete. The Averys, well, the Prescotts, in our version, clustered around her, immaculate smiles, immaculate cologne. When she laughed, the groom's mother put her fingertips to her mouth as if Maya were a pleasant surprise at a charity auction. I decided I would not say goodbye. I turned toward the living wall of vines that hid the back exit and took 1 step. The music cut out like somebody had tripped over a cable. Maya's voice floated out of the sound system. Clear, steady, the voice she uses when she's made a choice no weather can change. We're done, she said. Everything inside that big room held its breath. The DJ froze over his laptop, like sound might jump up and bite him. The groom, Pierce, blinked, as if someone had flicked a rubber band at his temple. Maya let the shoes fall. They hit carpet with a soft, expensive thud. She laced her fingers through his, unlatched them a heartbeat later like she'd touched a stove. We're leaving, she said to no one and everyone. And then she walked straight to me. People parted without knowing why. She took my arm the way she did when she was 9 and wanted to cross Broad Street. No fear, just a hand that believed the one it held would move. Let's go, she said. Maya, I started. In the car, she said. And some commands from your child will always make you obey. We passed the sweetheart table stacked with rented promises, the floral arch that had pretended to be forever, the event planner with a clipboard and a face collapsing in stages. No one stopped us. Maybe it was the way Maya didn't look left or right. Maybe it was the new weight in my jaw. Outside smelled like river and cut grass. Her sedan sighed when the doors clicked shut. The wedding playlist tried to do its job, trumpets about eternal love, and I reached over without asking and shut it down. The bridge rose ahead like a black ribbon. Maya drove without directions. She has always known the way home by muscle memory. For 40 minutes, we didn't speak. The city glow gathered to the west like a bruise. Her eyeliner stayed perfect. Her knuckles on the wheel went the color of regret. Last night, she said finally, the place cards were already on the table. And you still let them dress you and pin you like a corsage? I asked. I hated the gravel in my voice. I had to know, she said. I needed proof I could lay on a table. Today was for that. We crossed the bridge. Beneath us the bay looked like truth, dark, wide, unbothered by human embarrassment. She took the exit for the Beltway without glancing at the sign. She could get to my place with her eyes shut. My house is a one-story in Hyattsville with a chain-link fence that waves at stray cats and keeps nothing of consequence out. The gutters complain in heavy rain. The porch light flickers when someone slams the bedroom door. But the deed's clean and the hinges, though tired, still do their job. Inside, the air had the vanilla tang of the store-brand cleaner I've trusted longer than I've trusted any politician. Maya dropped her heels by the mat and went straight to the fridge, grabbed 2 beers, passed me one, sat at the chip table with the scorch ring that looks like an off-brand sunflower from the time she pressed a hot cookie sheet down without a trivet in 8th grade. I needed their faces when the mask slipped, she said. She unlocked her phone with her thumb, found a video, and slid it to me. Now watch. It was shot steady, good light, the kind of recording you make when you know why you're making it. The groom's father, Graham Prescott, the family name glued on the backs of trucks that deliver sterile things you never think about, stood at the bar with his tie loosened and the comfortable swagger of a man who never had to choose between the electric bill and food. Come on, he said, voice glazed with $100 scotch. The guy's a building super. I looked up his place. You should see the satellite view. It's almost quaint. Someone off camera tittered. The mother's voice, Victoria, smoothed into the frame like lotion on a wrist. Don't be unkind, Graham. He's the caretaker. That's his title. Use the right words. Laughter rolled around the bar like marbles. Then the camera found its quarry. Pierce, handsome in the way men are when they've never needed to be useful, leaned in with the wet confidence of someone about to share a secret he thinks will bond him to other men forever. Just wait until she realizes who could have walked her down the aisle, he said. Not the guy with the mop. Her actual father. The video stopped. Time didn't. I looked down at my hands. 20 years of bleach doesn't forgive a pair of hands. No amount of soap scrubs what you needed to carry out of your fingerprints. I thought about Maya's mother, who put a suitcase in a borrowed trunk when Maya was 4 months old and drove toward a life where mornings belonged to her and nights didn't include crying and other people's needs. Somewhere, there's a version of her who made different choices. We didn't meet that one. They knew, I said. They knew and they smiled right through it. They let me iron a shirt and not a tie and believed I'd clap politely when the cake rolled out. Maya set the phone like a judge sets a file. Closed and enough. Why didn't you tell me before? I asked. Why let me walk into that room? Because this wasn't an insult in a hallway, she said. This was a position. I needed to see if they would sign their names to it in public. I needed them to give me the whole picture. They did. So you married him to pull the pin on a grenade, I said. The words leapt out before I could tackle them. She reached into her clutch and set down a manila envelope. She slid it over the sunflower burn like a new sun. Inside, legally neat pages with my name under emergency contact, time-stamped emails with digital seals to and from attorneys whose names unwind on daytime TV commercials, not the billboards on the highway. I didn't marry him, she said. I never signed what they sent me. The prenup? I turned a page and saw clauses about contingent interests, good faith disclosures, things you feel before you learn to name them. Protect, protect, protect. I had counsel, she said. Family counsel. Quiet. They dropped a 20-page contract at midnight on a Friday like a thief. My counsel sent back a red line that made it honest. They ignored it. No signatures, no union. What you saw today was a very expensive rehearsal dinner. You hired a lawyer? I tried not to add the father words. You should have told me. I could have come with you. We could have. She is not mine to carry through paperwork. I hired a lawyer the week I started building something people might want to take, she said. She wasn't bragging. She was reporting. She tapped her phone awake again and put it between us. The site loaded clean, a logo in teal, a name at the top, beacon early, then a line under it. Find trouble while it's still small. A headshot, her in a lab coat, hair back, eyes that say I'm patient and you can't scare me. I started. Co-founder, she said. We closed our Series C in the spring. We're not a unicorn. We're a stubborn mule hauling something that matters. She'd grown up pulling apart VCRs at this table, nestling gears and springs into plastic bowls like beads before an art project. She'd always carried small things out into the light. I sat there with beer sweating in my hand and realized my child had built a company that surrounded illness before it learned your name. Somewhere in me, the boy who learned to patch drywall with a butter knife smiled at the girl who learned to solder with a thrift store iron. They thought they were marrying up, I said, and I couldn't keep the pride from turning my voice warm. She nodded once. I let them enjoy that thought. People show you their truest moves when they think the floor won't give. She reached into her bag, fished out a leather folder, unsnapped it, turned it toward me. Certificates, transfer ledgers, wire receipts, purchase agreements stapled to corporations with names that make your eyes skip. Northwind Partners, Nova Bay Holdings, Alvar Street Trust. I traced the edges like a man reading Braille. What am I looking at? I asked. My quiet, she said. Since last summer, I've been buying pieces of Prescott Pharmalogistics. You bought their stock? I collected voting power, she said. As of last week, between my entities, I control just under 42%. 3 minority holders have signed proxy agreements. They're tired of the family running a business like a piggy bank. I swore without meaning to. 42. They've been sloppy, she said. The patriarch has a boat that eats cash. One brother likes the ponies. The other buys art he doesn't like from people he owes favors to. The stock's been quietly available for anyone with patience and spreadsheets. I had both. Remember when I asked you to co-sign a trust account at the credit union last June? I thought you were saving for a down payment, I said. I was, she said. On leverage. She fanned out papers the way you lay a tarot spread when you already know how the story ends. Vendors with addresses that dissolve under heat. Invoices padded for sterilization sleeves. Surge capacity that never hit a shelf. Compliance letters shared with regulators whose letterhead was something someone printed at home. Emails in which a controller wrote, "Let's keep this friendly for Q3," and a general counsel replied with a thumbs-up emoji and nothing else. It was a small mountain of shortcuts smoothed with money and habit. They're not monsters, she said. They're lazy with power. That's more dangerous because it looks like paperwork. I sat back. What do you need me for? I said. You already built the gallows. She slid one more paper onto the table. Clean font, thick stock, proxy designation. My name in bold and lonely. A signature line that waited. I'm putting my vote in your hands, she said. The air moved. Why me? Optics, she said simply. To them, I'm the woman who left their son on pause. Easy to paint me as a furious ex. They wrote, Father of Convenience, under your name. All right, let's make them say Chairman Daniel Rios into a microphone. If you hold the gavel, they can't turn this into a tantrum. It becomes accounting. You want me to run their meeting, I said. Even saying it out loud felt like stepping into someone else's code and realizing it fits. I want you at the head of the table, she said, and her eyes clicked into a place I've seen since she could point. I want you to use the voice you used with landlords and lazy electricians, and the man who tried to keep our security deposit because he didn't feel like returning to check the condition of the unit. I picked up the pen. My hand shook a little. Not with fear, with weight. I signed my name in letters that looked like a man who writes on work orders, not on line 13 of a corporation's bylaws. It looked right anyway. Board meets Thursday, she said, snapping the folder shut. 9 sharp. You're not wearing those boots. I don't own anything else, I said. You will by tomorrow, she said, and disappeared down the hall into the room that is hers even when it is storage, because some claims don't erase. I sat alone at that cheap table under the hum of a fridge that owes me nothing and thought about how revenge in movies is a firework and in real life is a form you file at the right office, notarized. On Thursday morning, Maya tossed a garment bag on the table and opened it like a magician unveiling a rabbit nobody wants to pet because they're too busy clapping. Charcoal suit. Subtle pattern you don't feel until you're wearing it. I put the jacket on, and the weight of it pulled my shoulders back into a shape I'd forgotten. The shoes were black, soft, and quiet. They made me feel like I could walk on marble without sponsorship. Where did you? A tailor owes me favors, and I paid him back on top of it, she said. Turn around. The seam is good. Don't argue. The boardroom at Prescott Pharmalogistics had been designed by a catalog for rich seriousness. Long table the color of expensive chocolate. Leather chairs that hoarded people's smells. A view across Stamford Harbor that made boats look like toys children forgot to bring in. We arrived 4 minutes late. Maya pushed the glass door open as if the room were ours. Graham stood up so fast his chair hiccuped. This is a closed session, he boomed, using the voice that makes waiters apologize and young executives swallow their complaints. You have no standing. Read your own bylaws, Maya said. Executives and their designated proxies may enter and be heard. What executive? He asked, eyes slicing. She slid a paper to the corporate secretary, whose blazer sat like armor. Me, she said. As of Monday. The woman at the end of the table, late 50s, silver hair, eyes steady, looked at the pages, flipped one, then another. She looked up at Graham. Ms. Rios is properly registered as an executive by virtue of her share class and threshold, she said. Her proxy designation is also in order. Mr. Rios may sit. We sat. Maya distributed packets. No throat-clearing speeches. No theatrics. Facts lined up like men to wire. Vendors with last names that matched brothers-in-law, if you knew where to look. Internal emails that said, rounding, when they meant lying with good lighting. Government forms that would sing if you put a little pressure on them. Dates, amounts, names with enough black ink over them to satisfy our attorney, not enough to save face for theirs. Pierce sat 3 chairs down, perfect jaw clamped until the muscle jumped. He did not look at me. It didn't matter. His face had faded in my head from fiancé to an object you return to a store because the handle came off when you tried to pour. I stood because chairs tell your body a lie when you want to tell the room the truth. I put my palms on that handsome table. Emergency motion, I said, my voice unhitching from every apology I've ever been asked to make. Removal for cause. Begin with Graham. Continue with any officer who has participated in or concealed falsification. The silver-haired woman, her nameplate said Evelyn CHO, did not smile. She did not frown. She nodded. Motion entered, she said. All in favor. Hands rose. Mine. Evelyn's. 2 smaller investors. A man in a navy jacket whose cuff was frayed. A woman whose reading glasses hung from a chain that said she had seen worse. Lifted theirs like relief. Maya had done the math. Proxies made our side heavier by design. A hand here, a hand there. Enough. Motion carries, Evelyn said. 8-4. The chair and named officers are removed, effective immediately. The floor recognizes new business. Nominate Daniel Rios as interim chair, Maya said, and you could feel something subtle and permanent click into place. I did not do the smile of a man who has been invited into rooms to make people feel better about themselves. I said, I accept, and it sounded like something heavier than gratitude. The vote moved like a tide you forgot to check. Hands, eyes, recorded yes. Congratulations, Chair Rios. Evelyn said, like she trusted her own math. Graham shoved his chair back and stood. Red flared up his neck. You think you've won something, he said, and stormed for the door, dragging his brother with him. Pierce stayed a heartbeat longer, staring at the table as if it had said something rude. Then he went, slower than his father. I did not watch the elevator doors close on him. Some exits don't need witnesses. Maya and I left without touching the snacks. In the lobby where the art was abstract and expensive, she breathed out like a diver who'd been under longer than anyone thought possible, then grinned at me. Really grinned, the way you do when the future beats its wings inside your ribs. The suit works, she said. You stand different. I'm never going to love these shoes, I said. You're not marrying them, she said. You're just borrowing confidence. At the kitchen table that made us, she placed another envelope between the salt and the tiny vase with 2 stubborn daisies doing their job. One more signature, she said. What now? We restructure, she said. Public Benefit Corporation. Majority stake locked in a trust with service covenants. We make sure the next son-in-law with a shiny watch can't siphon community health into his boat fuel. Profit, yes. But after people. On paper. With teeth. Are you sure? I asked, and heard myself, the way men ask daughters if they're certain about anything. Earrings, colleges, men with trouble in their hair. I have been sure since I watched a woman at the clinic pay for her insulin with singles and quarters, she said. Let's sign. We did. A notary witnessed us from a kitchen in Glen Burnie where a toddler crawled across the frame with a cheese stick. She stamped the screen with a digital seal like a talisman. Maya forwarded it to 3 people and sat back like a mechanic who finally got the bolt to turn. A week later at 11 p.m., someone knocked in that particular polite way that says not neighbor, not cop. I opened the door to find Pierce on my step with his tie loosened. Hair the kind of messy rich men think absolves them of softness, eyes chapped by pride. Mr. Rios, he said. 2 minutes. Behind me, the house smelled like lemon and fabric softener. I leaned against the frame. You called me a mascot, I said. Now you're on my porch. He flinched. I was drunk, he said. You were telling the truth you keep wrapped in nice paper, I said. Maya patted down the hall in a hoodie and socks, ponytail caught in a band she'd stolen from me years ago and never returned. It's fine, she murmured and slipped past me. Pierce held out a crumpled letter like a boy at a neighbor's door with a ball he'd put through a window. I wrote. I don't need words, she said. I need distance. She handed him a crisp envelope of her own. That's a cease and desist for personal contact and a reminder that interfering with corporate governance is a crime. Read it. Honor it. It'll keep you out of situations where I have to think about you. He didn't take offense, which surprised me. He took the envelope as if it were a bar of soap. I thought we had something real, he said, and he meant it, which didn't make it true. We had something, she said. You wanted a story where I saved you from yourself. I wanted a partner who cleaned his own mess. We were both wrong. He nodded once like a man receiving a diagnosis his doctor rehearsed in the mirror. He went down the steps without drama and drove away in a car that belonged on a magazine cover about poor taste. He turned his headlights on at the corner. There are only ever two choices, learn or repeat. He would pick one and live with it. On a hot Saturday in September, under a sagging pop-up at Bladensburg Waterfront Park, 3 tables held neatly stacked boxes, blood pressure cuffs, continuous glucose monitors, cheap Android tablets with a big font app called My Numbers, and illustrations you could follow even if English hates you. 2 volunteers, nurses with tattoos and patients, demonstrated a cuff on a woman whose grandchild held her hand like you hold a balloon string. A banner flapped behind us, Rios Access Initiative. It wasn't fancy. It was big enough for a kid on the swing set to read between kicks. Maya took the cheap microphone like she wasn't performing for anyone, just talking to the people who lived on either side of our block. This is not charity, she said. It's overdue. Old women from the church fanned themselves with bulletins and nodded like someone had finally said the headline out loud. When she called my name, something in my chest did the thing love does after the fight, softened without collapsing. I stepped up. The mic made me sound like I had authority I never asked for and have been practicing by accident all my life. I'm not a numbers guy, I said, except at the end of a month when you open the fridge and count what's left. Laughter, soft and familiar. I can't fix your whole week. I can help you not be scared of this cuff. I can tell you if your number looks like trouble and where to take it. And I can promise you the people who used to mark up the price on these boxes can't touch this table anymore. After, 3 teenagers came up like a weather front. One girl wore a sweatshirt that declared future engineer even though the day begged for tank tops. I've never seen somebody who looks like you run a meeting with people like that, she said. You will, I told her, and watched belief move across her face like shadow across a court. We stacked chairs in a truck older than the college kids helping us, and when the park took back its ordinary noises, basketballs and gossip, Maya handed me a small white envelope. Inside, a key and a deed with both our names. What is this? A place on a corner with shade on summer afternoons, she said. Not payback. An expansion. Come or don't. It'll be waiting. For the first time in a long time, I sat in quiet that didn't feel like a truce. It felt like a balcony. Months later, I sat in the front row of an auditorium at the University of Maryland where young people wear backpacks like armor. Maya stood under bright light that turned her hair into a question mark and gave a talk called Strategic Patience. Acting slow, winning fast. She described watching, documenting, resisting the pull toward noise. A student asked who taught her to do that. My first CFO, she said without a pause. He didn't go to college. He taught me cash flow with the fridge and the calendar and a marker that ran out halfway through and the insistence that bills don't care about your feelings. Heads turned. I didn't raise a hand. I nodded to my shoes. I slipped out before the applause made me itch. The valet's line snaked with cars that smelled like stale coffee and ambition. The same valet from the wedding, sharp fade, sharp mouth, opened my door and said, "Nice car, sir," like he meant it. People change, or you see them with cleaner eyes. We drove past the gas station where I used to feed quarters into a machine that coughed more air than gas. Above it, a new billboard in navy letters. No CGI, no fireworks, honor compounds. Rios Access Initiative. Just the words we mean. You didn't have to do any of this, I said to the window. You're right, she said, thumbs still moving on her phone. I wanted to. On my block, Mr. Ruiz waved from his stoop like the last 20 years were a table he could put his elbows on. The shadows across the sidewalk landed exactly where they always do this time of day, on step 8 where the concrete bites. Sometimes people ask me what revenge looks like. I used to think of fire. I think of shade now. Sometimes Maya asks me if I would have forgiven him, meaning Pierce. In a different life, maybe, I tell her. Not in this one. In this one we chose structure over apology. We didn't burn fields. We revised ownership. We took a private artery and made it public with promises you can point to on paper. We put the person they called a convenience at the head of a table and let him be boring on purpose. We bought cuffs and tablets by the case and put them on tables where the directions are written in a font your aunt can read without her glasses. We rented a billboard and told the truth in a sentence. The neighborhood recognized itself. That winter, a plain envelope arrived from a return address that looked like A.P.O. box and a favor. Inside, a check for $600 and a note handwritten in anxious loops. Mr. Rios, I used to round numbers on the invoices. It was wrong. I'm sorry. Please put this toward more monitors. Anonymous. I laughed in the direction of no one, not unkindly. Money that arrives with apology buys batteries the same as money that arrives with tax advantages. We cashed it. We bought cuffs. We put them on wrists that have been stacking groceries and grief for decades. Numbers came down. Some people slept. One afternoon, taking the suit to the cleaners because lemon cleaner and public speaking don't share a closet, I found the old place card under the jacket, forgotten. The calligraphy looked like it had tried too hard and won a ribbon for effort. The 3 words beneath, puffed from black to washed gray over time. Father of convenience. I kept it. Not wounded, not framed. Just kept. People tell you what they think you are because it helps them believe what they think they are. Then one day your child will hand you a different pen. On the back of that place card, in block letters that would make any middle school English teacher sigh, I wrote chair. Under it, in smaller letters that I pressed once and then again, I wrote dad. We drive back to the water sometimes. Maya still slips her shoes off before we hit the gravel, and I carry them like a pack mule that never complains because the weight is love. The bay tells the shore the same story it always has. This is bigger than you. The wind shuffles her hair like it did when she was 4 and ran toward everything. We did all right, I say to the horizon. We did better than all right, she answers, bumping my shoulder the way she did in middle school when she wanted me to pretend to be annoyed so she could laugh. People ask for lessons. I say I'm not qualified. Then I say them anyway. Watch long enough to learn the pattern under the promise. Write things down so somebody can follow you out if the lights go off. Don't mistake noise for heat. Take responsibility where they withhold respect. Love is shifts and forms and signatures and chairs stacked and bills paid and a hand on a steering wheel that doesn't shake. When the music stops and your child says, "We're done," stand up. It won't feel like a march. It will feel like oxygen. Everything after that is paper, names on lines, hands in the air at a table that finally belongs to everyone breathing. The revenge part burns off by itself like alcohol in a pan. What stays is steadiness. It sits in a suit you didn't expect to own fitting across a back that has lifted a lot. It sits in a boardroom where your voice does not echo because the walls are listening. It sits under a Navy billboard and atop a folding table in a park where the wind flips a sign that says access and means it. It sits at a cheap kitchen table with a sunflower burn where a father and a daughter sign their names to something that outlasts pettiness and points toward useful. If there's a moral, it's this: the people who try to write your label don't get to keep the pen.